Peace. Yo, I wanted to build on a, controversial topic. A lot of people wonder, is the nation of gods and earth Muslims? No. You know what I'm saying? Simply put, when you look at like traditional Islam, in a religious context, as taught from the Prophet Muhammad, he gave his followers 5 pillars. As the gods and earth, we don't acknowledge or we don't adhere to practicing the 5 pillars of Islam as taught by Prophet Muhammad. And it's not to say that we don't study, Islam in a religious context in regards to like Sunnis or also like Sufis or Shiites or whatever different type of so-called angle of Islam that it is. There may be some gods that immerse themselves in the study of those different disciplines because Allah is Lord of all worlds, but that doesn't mean that we're Muslims, you know what I'm saying, in that sense. If we were Muslims, that's what we'd call ourselves, you know what I'm saying, but obviously we have a name that is distinct, and it distinguishes us from other different nations or other different cultures or other different philosophical ideologies, you know what I mean? Another thing about it is like, in our degrees, we have 120 lessons, which was originally called Supreme Wisdom or the Secret Doctrine or the Secret Rituals, you know what I'm saying, of the early Nation of Islam. Those lessons were basically published in a question and answer formats, of a conversation between Elijah and his benefactor or his educator, Master Farad Muhammad. So the Nation of Gods and Earth, we utilize those lessons. Some of the things we didn't take. We didn't take no fucking restrictive laws. We didn't take no problem book, different things like that. All we took is the lessons. You know what I'm saying? So even though we have those lessons and, some of them for instance, we got 1 degree in our 1 to 36s. It's the 14th lesson. It says his own self is a righteous Muslim. So some of the idiots out there think that simply because that lesson says that literally, that we literally see ourselves as Muslims, even though we're Allah. That shit is not right and exact. You know what I'm saying? Just because it says that doesn't mean that we take it literal. You know what I'm saying? Just like some of the actual facts. You look at Pacific Ocean, 68,634,000 square miles. You look at the total area square miles of planet Earth, 196,940,000 square miles, 57,255,000 square miles of land, 139,685,000 square miles of water. Different actual facts like that was manifested in the early 30s. Those actual facts are not the exact measurements of how it is today, you know what I'm saying? So it's not that we sit and we continuously recite those lessons for to take it literal, you know what I'm saying? We take it to a whole different level and we apply it to how it functions in our life, you know what I mean? It's sort of like if we say the planet Earth is our home, then obviously you should know the dimensions of your home, the same way you should know the dimensions of your house. You know what I'm saying? You should know how big your living room area is. You should know how big your kitchen area is. Know how big your bathroom area is and stuff like that. I was building with one of my god brothers, Divine, and him and his queen and shit. They just bought a house recently, and he was just telling me last night just about how, being a homeowner now, it takes his mind to a whole different level because there's certain things that he considers now because he's a maker and an owner of that home. You know what I'm saying? And, he has to measure different dimensions of different rooms and things like that to actually take away different things that he wants to change or add on to other things. You know what I'm saying? It's like the planet Earth, which is the home of Islam. If this is our home, we should also know the dimensions of our planet. And what it does is it psychologically orientates you in such a way where you're not limited. You're not in a box. You know what I'm saying? And it's like going back to that knowledge culture degree in the 1 to 36 I was just building about when it says his own self is a righteous Muslim. Own denotes possession. So what is my own self? My own self is my hat, my hair, my facial hair, my Brooklyn Zoo shirt. That is something that I possess. That is of my own self. Shit, even my digits. That is of my own self, you know what I mean? So if you really want to look at that degree and take it in a technical context, these are Muslim because they submit to the will of Allah. Allah is the supreme mind that governs all forces, substances, organic and inorganic substances and forces in the universe. You know what I mean? Allah represents intangible intelligence or consciousness that governs all life, death, organic, inorganic, substances and forms in the universe, forces. So anything in the physical realm could be considered Muslim, you know what I'm saying? Because that is of our own self, So, but that doesn't mean we're Muslim in the sense where we wearing big ass beards and shit and, saying Assalamu alaikum to everybody. But like I said, that does not mean that there are some gods and earths that immerse themselves in the religious aspect of Islam in order to get the best part and preserve it for themselves. Why? Because like I said, Allah is Lord of all worlds. You acknowledge me? And, so I just wanted to clarify that. The gods and earths were not Muslims, but that does not mean that we don't study Islam or, things like that from a... Matter of fact, my enlightener and shit, he went amongst Sunnis and studied amongst them for years. I mean, to the point where he even speaks Arabic and all that shit. If you seen him, you wouldn't believe. Yeah, he don't look like he do, but he does. You know what I'm saying? But it's like he immersed himself in that in order to preserve the best part for himself. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of gods that do that. They may do that in, go amongst different Christian sects. They might go amongst Jehovah's Witnesses. We go in all different types of worlds and get the best part and preserve it for ourselves. So I just wanted to clarify that. You know what I'm saying? The Nation of Gods and Earth, no, we're not Muslims. We're not Muslims. You know what I'm saying? That's all I wanted to say. Peace.